Hi, I'm Brian Felsen, president of CD Baby. I'm here at Bandwidth 2011 Music Technology Conference speaking with Scott Perry, founder of the New Music Tip Sheet and Sperry Media. And New Music Tip Sheet's the #1 resource for new releases and music and technology info.
Well, I try anyway. I mean, basically, I list almost every new release from almost every label on one site, so it's a really good resource for the music industry to see what's coming out without having to jump all over the place. And then from there, I pull headlines from the top music blogs and business sites so that people get a well-rounded realm of information without having to, again, jump all over the place. Yeah, I mean, time is precious, so in cutting a lot of that time out so people can focus on their jobs and just get the news they need. Hopefully it makes everybody's lives a little bit easier and everybody works a little bit smarter and just get along with their days better.
So in addition to running New Music Tip Sheet, I'm gonna cut all over the place. In addition to running New Music Tip Sheet, you run Sperry Media. And other companies like Billboard and Vice and Fader do other things as well as content. So can you describe to me what all of those companies do, what you do, and why it's not just about content for tip sheets and magazines?
Sure. I mean, trade magazines and most magazines can only go so far with their advertising dollars. In the case of something like Vice, Fader, Filter, and whatnot, they have marketing arms which are an extension of the magazine, and part of that is because they have a natural reach to their audience, which is desired by certain sponsors, but then they have obligations to those sponsors to do stuff outside the printed media, like throw parties and send out specific emails about different products and whatnot. Now, in the case of Billboard and myself, any other trade magazine, you have to have multiple revenue streams, because if you look at the newest issues of Billboard, you're talking about a 52-page magazine with 4 pages of paid ads. They might have 12 pages of ads, but 8 of those pages are for internal type products, like the next conference they have or the next book they have to sell and all that. So it's really difficult to survive just on advertising revenue. So in the case of Billboard, they have the directories, which they still sell. They have charts and the access to that they still sell. They have conferences, which is a big revenue generator for them. And then as for myself, I've never done a conference, but I do consulting, I do research, I do lifestyle marketing for non-music companies like film and TV, because they have larger budgets and allow me to do a lot bigger things that pay the bills. The tip sheet itself, I sell subscriptions to a premium section called Crystal Ball. There's advertising sales on the tip sheet, but that's just enough to cover the bases and pay the bills. It doesn't get me rich by any means, but it's a passion of mine. I love providing that information, and by providing that information, that puts me square in the middle of the entire music ecosystem, because radio, retail, press, booking agents, concert promoters, music supervisors, advertising agencies, sync licensors, managers, lawyers, all use the tip sheet to see what's coming out. So by providing that information, it puts me in the middle of everybody's business, from which I can sell some ads to a distinct section of the business, the labels mostly, and then leverage those relationships to take on consulting gigs and research gigs and marketing gigs that really help put an extra dollar in my pocket when it's needed. So yeah. You have to wear multiple hats these days, always.
Okay. I'm going to be passing you the mic just because I'm about 1.5 feet shorter than you, and I basically can't hold it anymore.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any analogies between yourself as a tip sheet, not just relying on content as your source of income, and being a musician trying to diversify revenue streams and make money from other sources?
There are a lot of parallels. I don't like to compare myself or call myself an artist, or because I'm not an artist, but I am a creator. And these days, it's not enough to just create. You made an album, congratulations. That's the first step of a very, very, very long road you have to take. And so along the way, you have to create an environment where your content is in the middle of other people's lives, which then merits those people supporting you in what you do. It's a shame that by making something that people enjoy, that you're not fully compensated enough to have the lifestyle that you would like. But because of the economics of the day, you really have to go out there and be a part of everybody's lives on a regular basis. And that sucks. I'll be the first to admit that as an artist, as a creator, the first step is just creating your content. Then you have to go out and promote it and connect with people and engage and monetize and all these, silly .com terms that pay the bills, But as a creator, your stuff is going to be taken and shared with others for better or for worse. There's a consolation when somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I love that song you wrote. That's a really beautiful song. My girlfriend and I, got married to that song. That's great. You just enriched somebody else's lives. But what did you get for that favor? 99 cents. And then of that 99 cents, how much did you actually put in your pocket? 18 cents. I can't do the quick math, but it's like 61. Okay, 61. Okay, but depending on how the splits go, it's like it's tough, you just enrich somebody's life for 61 cents. Now, how do you extend that relationship beyond the 61 cents and get more out of it? And all of a sudden, you've got to build a whole cottage industry around that. You have to have a CD. If you can merit a premium bundle, then great. You have to build that too. If you have a large enough audience, you go out on the road to tour, and it's just all these ifs. But without the old school ecosystem, for better or for worse, where a benefactor pays you $500,000 up front and finances your project for another $500,000, to which you may never see a dollar of that according to the old school rules. But 10, 20 years ago, there's somebody willing to say, I'm going to spend $1 million to turn you into a brand name. We see all the accounting nightmares, how, somebody might have sold 10 million units and they only pocketed $10,000. But, that was the trade-off. To have somebody, to have somebody else handle the reins and, help promote you was a big luxury for a lot of people. And, to be able to go out on the road in a big tour bus, on a big tour without having to worry about who's going to pay for this was great, until you realize at the end of the day, we didn't make any money off that. But, it's just how the world works these days, but the good thing is there's a lot of tools at your disposal to where you can find your fans and monetize your fans and have them reward you for the work that you do, so that hopefully with a lot of these new platforms, you can have your recording paid for before you even press your first CD.
You've written that people go about discounting for tours in exactly the wrong way, that they do it backwards. What do you mean by that?
Well, basically a lot of people are using platforms like Groupon and Gold Star to discount their tickets at the last minute, which, maybe it puts some extra butts into seats. It especially works when you're not doing it for the discount as much as you are to get advertising on that platform, whether it's Gold Star or Groupon and stuff like that. But the problem is we're instilling a last-minute discount mentality into the consumer, and instead of using something like Gold Star or Groupon to sell half-price tickets at the last minute, use those platforms to sell half-price tickets at the very beginning of the tour, at the beginning of the announcement, so that you found a way to reward the superfans for buying early and then spreading the word to their friends. Instead, we're using these discount platforms to really harm the process, and there are new platforms out there like Gilt Group, where they're selling VIP packages to a select audience with a high dollar margin. So if you charge $50 for a ticket, you can charge an extra $50 for the backstage for the rehearsal, and you may only sell 50 of those tickets, and that's only $2,500 extra dollars just for 50 people to see you play rehearsal. But what you get on top of that is advertising to a premium platform with a premium audience. And stuff with Groupon and Gold Star, you do get millions of views. They might not be targeted views, but you do get millions of views. But they might not be the right qualified people, and typically those people are in it for the discount, not necessarily for the actual product. So it's a fine line to walk, but if you can leverage those platforms to reward your fans early, then that's great. If you're playing 1,000-seater and you can offer 100 tickets via Groupon, or whatever it is, a Gold Star specifically, because Groupon you really have to, you have to have a minimum certain number on sale, and then if you do sell out, it gets really frustrating. Long story anyway, but you just use a small pool of your tickets to reach a larger audience, and then if they don't get that first discount, then you go back and they buy them at the full price.
QR codes never really took off. There was a big hype around them, but they never really took over the world like it promised. Why do you think that is?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the fact that QR code readers aren't necessarily pre-installed into mobile devices, or if they are, people don't know how to find them. It's my understanding. I don't have an Android phone, but I think that Android phone cameras do have a QR code reader installed into the camera itself for certain models. But the iPhone does not have a QR code reader. I've got 3 or 4 different QR code readers installed on my iPhone. I even use Google Goggles as a QR reader. But it's been so it's not pre-installed onto the devices. You don't know what you're getting when you scan the code, and a lot of times when you scan the code, you go to a really lame landing page that offers you no reward for that. I mean, it's great in a world when you don't have the time to type out a URL to remind yourself, oh, I need to check out, this real estate page or get this discount for this frozen yogurt or whatever it is that a lot of these larger brands are offering. But you go to South by Southwest in Austin, and you see all these band flyers on these telephone poles, and you see the QR codes. Everybody's got them. You click on a couple of them, and there's just not a good enough value proposition to encourage the customer to take that action unless they really, really want to, unless they're going to win an iPad or learn more about the new Muppet movie, see this exclusive trailer, but that's not specifically spelled out on a lot of these flyers that you see out there. So it hasn't taken off yet, but it's like the RSS reader. I believe that I love the RSS readers. I use Google Read all the time myself. Not a lot of people did, because in the early days of RSS, the whole process of adding a news feed into your RSS reader, again, it was a third-party installation. It was kind of awkward. It never took off. But, stuff like Facebook and Twitter have become de facto RSS feeds because RSS is a news feed. Facebook is a news feed for all your friends. Twitter is a news feed for all the people you follow. So the spirit of RSS has been adopted into the mainstream, even if RSS itself never took off. I expect the same thing to happen with QR codes eventually in some form or another, but it's not going to be until a QR code reader gets pre-installed into future iPhones or something somewhere. There's a big impetus to just maybe it's a Netflix thing. I don't know. It's just like maybe when we get to a point where there's like complete mobile ubiquity, and you want to you see videos on your bus terminal saying you're going to be on the bus for the next 40 minutes. Watch the new episode of Lost. Click on the QR code, automatically goes to Netflix. Netflix pops it up on your iPad or your iPhone, and you're good to go. But there's no killer. There's no killer use for QR codes yet, but I believe in them, but we're a ways off.
You said yesterday that in a recession you have to earn a right to a piece of people's money. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, everybody's got to look at how they spend their money and where they go with their money and what they do. And if you provide a crappy experience, people aren't going to come back, no matter if you're a musician, if you're a retailer, if you're a venue. So, yeah, you have to up the game, I mean, it's like I see a lot of promoters out there going out of their way to provide a better experience for shows. I mean, you see all the amenities that are added to outside lands and all the magic that is associated with that. Now, granted, they've got a much larger budget to where they can do little things here and there. Oh, we're going to put light up plastic candy cane skulls in the trees. That's going to cost us $800, but you know what? We can afford to do that. And maybe a venue just as simple as, something as simple as making sure the bathroom doesn't smell like puke and beer, little things like that, appeasing to the olfactory senses to make sure that the venue is a better place. Exactly. Denmark, 1974. It smells like a Motorhead concert. What the, it's some places can exist like that, but you have to earn every dollar you make, and you have to make the experience a good experience. I mean, an artist can no longer phone it in, no matter how hard the van ride was from Sacramento to Los Angeles or from San Diego to Phoenix. I mean, yeah, the van broke down, but guess what? You had 200 people pay $8 a piece to see your band play. You got to give it all you got, even though the van's broken down outside, and you and your bassist hate each other, and your girlfriend's saying that she wants to break up, 400 miles away. You gotta deliver, and it's tough, but every dollar counts. And a bad experience means you could lose a true fan for life. And it's tough, but you gotta just deliver 100% every time.
At Bandwidth Music Technology Conference, a lot of people are giving opinions on what the next technology will be. Right now, at this year, it's Spotify or Turntable.fm. People are talking about streaming or DJing. And they have opinions in terms of what the experience will be like for the consumer. But what do you think all of this means for the artist in terms of their ability to find an audience and to monetize it?
Man, that's a tough call. I mean, it just provides that many more platforms where artists can showcase their work, or people have access to their work. And hopefully, the more platforms we have, the more it's licensed out there, those fractions of pennies turn into dollars, and people can make a sustainable living, because people aren't, buying, ingesting music like they used to. So if they can make money from all these other areas, it's tough though, because a lot of the services out there have paid the labels for the rights to use their catalogs, but the labels haven't exactly passed that money on to the artists yet. So, but having music in as many places as possible, enhancing the experience beyond passive listening on the radio to actively creating communities around certain bands and sounds. When you go to Turntable, you see all these different stations or all these different rooms based on different types of music so that fans can find each other again. It's great. I mean, I think about how I had to discover music growing up as a kid in Alabama, and that punk alternative section in the back of the mainstream record store is all I had. I mean, it was really it was mystical, and to see bands like X and Butthole Surfers and GBH and Black Flag, and the Ramones and the Cramps. You see those album covers, but gosh, that album costs $7. I don't know what it sounds like. My radio station's not playing it, And these days, kids got it good. If they want to pick up on the Grateful Dead, boom, it's there. Deep Purple, King Crimson, all these bands that I always heard about, but because I lived in Birmingham, Alabama, these things weren't exactly being played on the radio for me to find out about. I didn't have a large social network or a bunch of older brothers and sisters whose albums I could pilfer and learn from. I mean, I did learn from ELO and the Eagles and Paul McCartney and stuff like that my brother owned, but I never had anything like the social networks that people have today where music's available anywhere, anytime.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure speaking with you.